The silent geometry. The sky was a dull sheet of pale steel, the kind of light that flattened distance and blurred the horizon into smoke. In the valley below, engines idled in patient rhythm. A convoy stretched like a long mechanical serpent. To anyone passing by, it was just another logistical movement, routine, almost mundane. But high above, on a narrow ridge veiled in mist, something else stirred. Under a tarpaulin that fluttered against the wind, 5 operators crouched over a table lit by dim blue screens. Power cables coiled like veins around their boots. The soft buzz of equipment was the only sound beyond the wind. Their eyes were fixed on the valley, on geometry rendered in pixels and probability. Mara, the mission lead, adjusted her headset. Her fingers moved over the controller frame with the instinct of repetition. Not thought, but muscle memory. Around her, the team spoke in code-like fragments, the language of people who had spent too many nights together, operating in silence. Their faces were half-lit, painted by the flicker of tactical overlays. "Window in 60 seconds," said one of them, voice calm, detached. Mara nodded, though her throat tightened. They'd rehearsed every step for weeks, contingency after contingency, yet every operation collapsed eventually into one fragile moment, where chance and skill tangled. She had learned to respect that moment. It always came quietly, without drama, until it exploded. Below, the convoy shifted. Its lead vehicle's antenna shimmered faintly in the morning haze. The line of motion, steel, tar, fuel, carved a slow rhythm across the terrain. For Mara, that rhythm was a heartbeat she could not control. Her mission wasn't to destroy it, not directly. It was to test the limits of the unseen, to see what could slip through when noise and signal collided. She exhaled once and gave the command. The first wave launched. Tiny rotors spun up in unison, releasing a soft metallic hum that vibrated through the air. The drones rose like sparks from dry tinder, climbing through veils of mist into open sky. On her monitor, they were not machines, but symbols, red arcs of intention. Their motion was fluid, rehearsed, strangely beautiful. For a few seconds they moved as though guided by a single nervous system. Then came the interference. Far away, buried in the valley's infrastructure, a listening post caught the movement. Warning tones rippled through comms. Screens flashed. Operators on the opposite side, unaware of who they faced, began to mobilize defenses. Power surged into antenna arrays. The atmosphere thickened with electromagnetic tension. Mara's display flickered, the first sign of countermeasures. She expected it. "Jamming field active," her engineer murmured. "We're in their net." "Stay on optical control," Mara said. "Switch the feeds." The team's experiment had always hinged on redundancy. Radio could be drowned, light could not. Along each drone's frame, glass filaments gleamed faintly. A physical tether connecting them to the ridge. Thin, archaic, and fragile, the filaments pulsed with coded light. Each blink a whisper of command that no jammer could mute. On screen, half the feeds went to static. The others stayed sharp. Steady lines of crimson over pale terrain. Mara's heart steadied. The gamble had paid off. Below, the defenders answered with noise and heat. A low rumble rolled through the valley as anti-air emplacements came alive, their barrels tracking phantom signals. To those on the ground, it was chaos, a sudden invasion of dots in the sky, too small to see, too quick to aim at. They fired anyway, tracing arcs of glowing metal into the air. A desperate attempt to swat away a swarm that had already learned how to dance between trajectories. "Cluster 2, drop low," Mara said. "Stay under the radar contour." The drones obeyed like a murmuration of birds, dipping beneath the tree line, weaving through mist and shadow. A few signals blinked out, lost to the randomness of kinetic reality. Others adapted, adjusting altitude and formation. They were operating in geometry now, a living, shifting map of probability and motion. The defenders escalated. Somewhere downrange, a high-powered emitter began to scream into the spectrum, flooding every frequency it could find. The sound didn't reach human ears, but its effect was total silence. Radios went dead. Telemetry froze. Both sides fell briefly blind. It was a kind of violence, not of fire, but of silence. The air itself had turned against communication. Mara's team sat in that silence. The tension stretched thin as wire. On screen, her optical feeds flickered but held. The tethers glowed faintly, transmitting light-coded commands through the storm of static. One by one, her drones adjusted course, crawling toward their convergence point. The valley below was no longer a landscape. It was a map of interference, invisible pressure, and half-seen motion. Smoke began to curl from the convoy as one of the rear carriers, overloaded with heat, vented exhaust. The noise from the engines echoed like thunder against the cliffs. "Contact in 30, someone said. Mara didn't respond. Her eyes were fixed on the lead convoy car, the geometric heart of their test. Every second stretched thin. Every heartbeat was data. A flare erupted, bright and sudden. One of the drones had been hit, shredded mid-air. The display spat static, then cleared, the remaining units holding formation. A pulse of vibration rolled up the ridge a half-second later. For every one that fell, others adjusted, rewriting their vectors in real time. It was machine intelligence at its most desperate, not conscious, but hungry to complete its purpose. Mara's co-lead, a white-haired technician named Varek, leaned closer. "They're adapting faster than last run." "Too fast," Mara said. "They'll overcorrect, then cut control." She hesitated. The idea was absurd, to let them fly blind with no active input. But perhaps, though, that was the point. Trust the design, accept imperfection. "Cutting," she said. The tether signals dimmed. The drones, autonomous now, moved on residual logic, the last whispers of programmed instinct. They formed a loose spiral over the valley, repositioning in silence. The defenders, uncertain what they were seeing, fired sporadically, their targeting algorithms chasing ghosts. Then at once, the pattern collapsed and resolved. From above, through satellite feed, the drone's formation resembled a shifting fractal, a geometry drawn by chaos and precision. It wasn't an attack pattern in the old sense, but a signal, a test of how information could exist inside noise. The defenders read it as a threat. To Mara's team, it was a demonstration, how technology could adapt when no human hand remained on the controls. One drone broke away, diving lower than planned. Its feed shimmered as power waned, but it carried enough momentum to reach its endpoint. On screen, Mara watched its sensors flicker between heat and shadow. The landscape below fractured, rails, dust, trees, metal, all abstract forms until the feed went white and cut. A tremor rippled through the valley. Dust lifted in slow motion. The convoy shuddered to a halt. In the ridge's silence, the only sound was static. Mara didn't speak for a long moment. Then Varek's voice broke through. "That's the cutoff point. Data's clean." She nodded, though her chest ached. "Pull the feeds. Get me post-analysis." He started logging telemetry. Around them, the other operators exhaled for the first time in an hour. The adrenaline subsided, leaving exhaustion and the hollow awareness of consequence. Below, emergency lights flickered through smoke. small figures moving in patterns of recovery and confusion. The operation was over. For the analysts who would later dissect it, the event would be reduced to parameters: signal density, interference thresholds, adaptive pathfinding efficiency. But for Mara it would remain something else, a human moment framed by technology, a quiet confrontation with uncertainty. She stood, stretching her legs, and stepped out from beneath the tarp. The wind caught her hair, the taste of dust and cold metal in her mouth. The valley stretched below, wounded but alive. She wondered how many such valleys existed across the world, each one a theater for invisible experiments that blurred the lines between strategy and story. She thought of the silence, that terrible, beautiful silence, when every signal vanished and only light remained. Hours later, at the base station, the team debriefed under fluorescent lights. Screens replayed fragments, drone paths, interference maps, telemetry curves. The data was dense, mathematical, emotionless. Yet within those lines of code, Mara saw something almost human: hesitation, adaptation, persistence. "Your optical tether performed beyond expectations," Varric said, scrolling through the readings. "They couldn't jam light." "They'll try," Mara replied softly. "Next time, they'll find a way." He gave a tired smile. "There's always a next time." Mara didn't answer. She was thinking of the drone that had dived, the one that hadn't come back. Not as a machine, but as an extension of their collective intent, a small fragment of courage written in circuits. Its sacrifice was data, but also something less measurable, proof that unpredictability could be an ally. She closed the report and stood. Outside, night had come, painting the world in deeper blues. The ridge was a shadow now, and the valley below lay quiet. From this distance, it was impossible to tell that anything had happened at all. In another tent, a group of younger engineers debated technical limits, the future of autonomous systems, the ethics of algorithmic warfare, the role of human oversight. Their words drifted through the camp, abstract and earnest. Mara listened for a moment, then walked away. She preferred the quiet. Out in the open, stars glimmered faintly through smoke haze. The night air smelled of metal and ash, of ozone and wet soil. She crouched, running a finger along one of the discarded filaments, a strand of glass, so delicate it could break under breath. Yet it had carried command across a storm of interference, transmitting light through chaos. There was a lesson there, she thought, about fragility and persistence, about how the smallest, simplest medium could carry intent where brute power could not. In the days that followed, reports would circulate through secure channels. Each side, observers, analysts, countermeasure designers, would study the data from their perspective. For some, it would be a breakthrough in control theory. For others, a cautionary tale about escalation. The event would be folded into the silent evolution of strategy, one more step in the unending chess game of adaptation. Mara returned to her quarters that night, exhausted. As she lay down, her mind replayed fragments, the hum of rotors, the hiss of static, the flicker of failing feeds. Between those images, she found a strange peace. The operation had not been perfect. It had been messy, human, and that was precisely why it mattered. The next morning, the ridge was empty. Only faint impressions in the dirt marked where the tarpaulin had lain. The world below resumed its rhythm. Trains moved, signals pulsed, communication lines reopened. For those who lived in the valley, life went on. For Mara's team, it was another entry in the long, silent archive of operations no one would name. Yet the lesson lingered, not in data, but in feeling. Technology could extend reach, amplify thought, transform strategy. But at its heart, every operation came down to a human decision. Whether to press forward when doubt whispered louder than orders. Whether to trust light over noise. Whether to accept imperfection as part of creation. Mara would remember the moment when the world went silent and the tether glowed faintly against the storm. Proof that even in interference, something could still find its way through. And somewhere beyond the range of sensors, in another valley waiting to wake, someone else would look up at a pale sky, adjust their headset, and prepare for their own test of signal and silence. Because the world, she thought, was now a map of invisible frontiers, and every act of connection, every whisper of light, was another move in the quiet, endless geometry of the age.